And we're on. Hey there, everybody. I am Charles Perallo, and I bring a man who I voted to be president of the United States twice, the former governor of Mexico, businessman, and athlete, Governor Gary Johnson. How are you doing today?
Good, Charles. Thanks. Couple of weeks now, huh? A couple of weeks before the election. Debate
Couple weeks before
tonight.
the election, debate tonight, so it's a lot of stuff to talk about. And, the first thing I'm just going to ask is, 4 years ago, I actually interviewed you 2 weeks before the presidential election. The difference 4 years ago was you were on the ballot. This time, kind of looking at things from the sidelines. So the first question I'm going to ask, though, is, what has changed in the last 4 years for you? And how do you feel, going from being on the ballot to now just kind of watching and seeing what's going on?
Well, it's nice just watching watching what's going on and not having to participate. That's nice. COVID-19, I can't imagine conducting a campaign uh, under these circumstances. And I did vote for Jo Jorgensen, the Libertarian candidate for president. I hope she does well. But once again, this is a hard time to be running for office, I think, certainly as a third party.
Okay, so 4 years later, Donald Trump won. He shocked the world. It was an unexpected win. Comparing your views on Donald Trump 4 years ago to your views now, have any of them changed, and how would you rate his presidency as a whole?
Well, they've changed a lot. I can't believe that someone can speak untruth as often as he does, and somehow potentially being, potentially getting reelected. I'm astounded at the way that he has treated the office, and not in a positive way.
So, looking at the Trump administration so far, obviously you were an opponent from the beginning. What do you think is the biggest failure of this administration so far?
Just truth and transparency, telling the truth, or at least having a bent on always telling the truth. I always prided myself on telling the truth, but then I would find out that some things that I was saying were not true. I wanted to get on the telephone or take out a big ad and say, hey, I've been saying this all along and I was wrong. But I would never repeat something that I found out to be untrue. Trump, they're counting how many times he has told a lie, and it's thousands and thousands. And you and we get to see this played out almost every day. He doesn't tell the truth. And fundamentally, I did not think that we would ever have a president of the United States where that was the case. You can disagree with somebody all day long on why they're doing something, as long as you know why they're doing something. I think with Trump that's completely devoid. It's not there.
Okay, and now there's the other half to this equation, which is Joe Biden and Kamala Harris. And obviously, right now most people think that he will be the next president of the United States. 2 weeks is a long time, a lot can change that. But what do you think of Joe Biden, and what do you think of his chances?
Well, it's kind of amazing that we find ourselves in a very similar situation. I mean, just this breaking news lately about Hunter Biden, who's to believe what, but when you boil it all down, I'm glad I made a principled vote for Jo Jorgensen, the Libertarian candidate for president. It, there's really not a choice. Both sides are seemingly to be horrible. And where is the alternative? Well, there is an alternative. Is she going to be successful? And I'm talking about Jo Jorgensen. I don't think so. We'll see.
Okay, so here's kind of where I'm at with Jorgensen, because I've actually not voted yet, and so far I'm not planning on voting for her. I did vote for you though, and I voted for you twice. And I look at the Libertarian cycle, and the first person who was interested in running was Governor Bill Weld. And then, he didn't run, he ran as a Republican. Then there was Governor Lincoln Chafee. I was actually for a little while campaign manager of that at the end. He dropped out and ended his campaign, due to some personal issues as well as COVID. Congressman Justin Amash enters the race, and he drops out a couple weeks in, right before the primary happens. And we get Jo Jorgensen, who I can't say I've ever really heard of beforehand. I think I join the vast majority of people on that. But what do you think of her campaign as a whole? And what is your stance of just, like the process of the Libertarian Party, where you went from three people who were, very public profile in terms of their resumes, were capable of getting the larger interviews and larger dollars, and did have experience, and you ended up with two people who were basically like Libertarian Party members, but didn't have very thick resumes besides that.
Well, I read that Jo Jorgensen, she said that, look, I'm all about the Libertarian platform. I don't deviate at all from the Libertarian platform. Hey, good enough for me, regardless of how it turns out. I'm going to get to say that I did vote for principle in this election.
Okay, so to you, it's a matter of principle here. And, when it comes to the results, I think we just have to see what happens. I think ultimately Trump and Biden, every debate, and I think tonight will be a continuation of that, push more people to vote for Jorgensen. But regarding the debate tonight, if you were to ask them both one question, what would that question be?
Boy, they. I don't know. I don't know, Charles.
You don't know.
What if I could ask them one question, because the questions have been asked every time you turn the page. Trump's taxes a week ago, 2 weeks ago with the debate. He absolutely brushed them off. So the questions that you get to ask, I guess it would be maybe a qualifier. If you could ask a question and get it answered honestly, what would the questions be? And that's just not going to happen. They're not going to answer honestly. Joe Biden, with regards to packing the Supreme Court. Look, wealth tax, is that going to actually come to pass with Elizabeth Warren in charge of the financial side of this on the Senate side? And then Joe Biden and the recent revelations about payoffs and how much, if any, of those payoffs went to he personally. Well, I'd ask that question if I thought it would get answered honestly.
Okay, so never going to get answered. Now, you fought very heavily in 2016 to be in the presidential debates. In 2012, you did run as a Republican, were in a couple presidential debates. I remember the first ever Republican debate in 2011. You were there. For the first half of the debate, it was almost like they completely ignored you. It was you, Ron Paul, Herman Cain, Rick Santorum, and I'm actually slipping on the fifth person there. But my question is, who would you, if you were on the debate stage, what is the question you have always wanted to be asked? What is something that you would love them to ask you and bring that to America?
Well, it actually got asked in that presidential cycle amongst Republicans. They asked Republicans the question. I was not in the debate. I wish I would have been, because I would have answered it differently than I believe the 8 candidates that were on stage. And the question was simply, and this was how the question was couched. Theoretically, if Congress came to you with a balanced budget, and you could, and it involved a modest tax increase, would you accept a tax increase for a balanced budget? And they made it very clear this is a hypothetical question. Well, all 8 candidates answered no way. I would have answered that question. Look, we're talking about, in my opinion, what is the biggest issue facing this country today. And yes, to balance the federal budget, I would accept a tax increase. Now, you are talking about a hypothetical. The hypothetical is never going to happen, but that's where I would differ from everybody else that's here. It's the biggest issue, in my opinion, facing this country, and you're offering up a solution with a modest tax increase. I vote yes.
Senator Jeff Flake, in his book, which was kind of his memoir, Leaving the Senate, did a whole chapter about that. And he said, there's been deals in the House and Senate that have been offered where there would be a modest tax hike in exchange for, I think it was for every dollar of new taxes, there was $10 of spending cuts, and Republicans wouldn't take that deal. And Flake was very disappointed about that. So right now, let's actually bring this into the current leadership in Washington. I see a situation where, first off, I think there's a leadership which is a bit older than what the majority of the country is. Nancy Pelosi is 80 years old. Mitch McConnell is 78. Chuck Schumer is 70. And then Biden and Trump, whoever wins, they'll be the oldest person ever elected to that office before. So right now, what do you see as the problem going on in Congress where, be it COVID, be it, criminal justice reform, be it the Supreme Court, nothing ever seems to get done?
Well, it is a system that gets perpetuated by incumbency, and incumbency is about, politics is about money, is being able to raise money, to be able to not to outspend your opponent, but just have an amount of money that would be on parity. And if you have parity and you can get your name out there and what it is that you're saying, you stand a chance. But given given incumbency and the state of money in politics today, we have much of the same, if not all the same, perpetuated because of that.
Okay. So my next question is regarding the situation of, COVID right now. So I don't think, I don't think looking back 4 years ago, you ever thought there'd be a situation like this, and I don't think anyone did. But how do you think the president has handled it, and what would you have done differently when handling the, the COVID crisis?
Well, it's brand new to all of us, of course. Initially, I go along with, all right, we're going to lock down. Here's what we need to do. But today, what I'm asking for is just loosen the screws. Come on, we all understand what this is all about. We've been living with it. Wear a mask, social distance. Am I going to go to a concert? Am I going to go to a football game? I don't know. I'm going to wait a while. That's me personally. Maybe there are those that would want to do that. I say let them do that, given what we know today. So today, let's loosen the screws. Let's wear masks. Let's social distance. But beyond that, come on, let's give us our lives back.
Would you be open to a national mask mandate?
Well, not really, because once again, if you're not wearing a mask, you're at risk for receiving it. I realize there's all sorts of controversy about everything associated with this, but look, I go into a place and people aren't wearing masks. It's my choice then to leave. Sign on the door requiring masks. I dare say everybody's going to have a mask if there's a sign on the door that says that.
There was a stimulus deal, not that long after when the pandemic began. It looks like we might get another deal that happened with it. Congressman Amash had some complaints about it. I believe Congressman Massey was the only one formally opposed to it. What is your stance on that bill, and what do you think could have been done differently?
Well, I'll tell you what, I have interests in hotels personally. And given the number of hotels that I have interests in, they were all running on all 8 cylinders. And all of a sudden, what can happen to all of the hotels that I am part of? Well, the government can order them, in essence, shut down. And that's what they did. And should there be compensation? Not so much compensation, but loans made available to what are going to be tens of thousands of restaurants that are going to go out of business. The same with hotels. Tens of thousands, if not hundreds of thousands of businesses are going to go out of existence because what has happened to no fault of those in those businesses.
Well, right now, looking at it, the restaurant industry, there are 3 times as many bankruptcies going on right now as the entire year after the initial 2008 collapse. So there is a huge problem going on. Now, do you think that, on a fiscal note, because, for the entire time that you've been involved in politics on the national scale, as well as your time as governor, you've always been balance the budget, balance the budget, balance the budget. Do you think it might be the fundamental mistake of the Trump administration that they, increased the deficit massively and then this pandemic hits? And do you believe that, this is the kind of rude awakening and the emergency that shows we can't just spend, spend, spend?
Well, you heard testimony just the other day from the Federal Reserve saying the mistake right now would be to tighten as opposed to giving out more relief. The danger to the economy is not enough relief as opposed to too much. I just think it's got to be teetering people are spending their savings at the moment, and right now there's this rosy outlook that I don't think really the outlook isn't as rosy as the markets would make them appear. And I realize a lot of that has to do with the Federal Reserve. So I do believe it's a complicated issue. This is why I would love to be president of the United States. These are the kinds of things that, these are the kind of issues that I find exciting, when you can line up the best and the brightest on these topics and discuss what the options are and what we should be doing. But loans made available so that mortgages don't go in default for no other reason than the government has ordered a shutdown, that's not fair to those in those businesses.
Well, you would like to be president. That's why I voted for you twice to be president. So, my next question is regarding, Amy Coney Barrett and the whole process of the Supreme Court with Justice Ginsburg and everything going on. What is your opinion of that situation? Do you think it is wrong for them to, move so quickly? And have you had a chance to look at, Judge Barrett's record at all?
I'm just reading the oversight with regard to Judge Barrett, but the mistake was made several years ago when the Obama appointee, Merrick, am I pronouncing this right? Garland.
You got it.
Was not put up for confirmation. The problem there from the Republicans was, hey, we have the power to stall this nomination, and we're going to do just that. We're going to stall this nomination because if we win the election, then we'll get the choice. That was the mistake. The hypocrisy of the Republicans then saying this should be the choice of the American people, as opposed to this is politics and this is the way it works. That's the issue that I have with Republicans, is the hypocrisy of a Lindsey Graham that said, look, watch me. I'll never do this if I'm on the other side of this equation. And it's exactly what he's doing.
Now, what do you think of, Neil Gorsuch, Brett Kavanaugh? What was your opinion on those picks?
Well, if I were a member of, would have been a member of the Senate, I would have voted to confirm Kavanaugh based on my understanding of the process.
Okay, and I'm going to guess Neil Gorsuch the same thing.
Not so much. I wasn't as learned, if you will, on Gorsuch as I was on Kavanaugh.
Okay, so I think Gorsuch's actually a bit better than Kavanaugh. I agree that Kavanaugh should have probably been put through. I think that he was given a tougher time than any person needed to be given over that. And it was political over personal there. And I guess the third big issue right now is criminal justice. We've seen a massive rise with, Black Lives Matter. You were the first governor in the country to be for marijuana legalization. You've advocated for criminal justice reform for years. What do you think of the current status of that? And also, what do you think of Kamala Harris, who, as her entire career was against it, and now has made kind of a flip-flop for it?
Well, you point it all out. Trump has done a lot when it comes to criminal justice reform, and no telling where he might go if he's reelected. I don't think he's going to be reelected. Yeah, the hypocrisy of Kamala Harris as a prosecutor, putting people behind bars because of non-violent, arguably victimless crime, and that would be drug crime. I do have a prediction for you. I do think that the entire pot investment sector, publicly traded marijuana stocks, I think they're going to quadruple if Biden is elected, because he has promised to deschedule marijuana as a class 1 narcotic, and he's pledged to do that first day in office. We'll see. If he does that, of course, that would eliminate a lot of the banking issues, the interstate nature of the marijuana business that currently really isn't interstate at all.
So, when it comes to the marijuana industry as a whole, you were CEO to a company called Cannabis Sativa. I'm going to guess you were invested in marijuana stocks. What do you think of the marijuana industry? Do you plan on getting involved in the business side of it again anytime soon?
Well, I am involved as an advisor of a hedge fund that is strictly invested in marijuana publicly traded stocks. So Yes, I am invested in the sector, and I do believe that I think Biden's going to get elected. That's my opinion, and I think that the pot sector is actually going to fly. That's my opinion.
Okay, so touching, criminal justice, Amy Coney Barrett, COVID. What do you think is an issue currently not being discussed right now?
I haven't followed it. I haven't followed it that close, and I mean, last reading was that hey, confirmation, it's going to come up for a vote. So, boy, it's really flown under the radar as far as I'm concerned. And I read snippets here and there, but I'm sure that she is a qualified candidate to be Supreme Court justice.
No, but I was asking also, what do you think is an issue right now that's not being talked about by the major media that you wish was in the discussion at this point in time?
With regard to the Supreme Court?
Oh, no, regarding any issue actually in politics right now.
Well, there really it's so anti-Trump that you can't believe that it could possibly be as anti-Trump as it is, and yet every single time that he seems to have an opportunity to right what seems to be a wrong, he just furthers the perception that he's the music man. He paid $750 in taxes, and I get that that's income tax. That's not property tax. But and once again, if he were to tell the truth, last election cycle, he said, "Look, if I don't pay taxes, that just proves I'm a smart guy." Well, why doesn't he hang with that? Yeah, I paid $750 in taxes. It proves I'm a really smart guy. No, he says, no, I've paid millions and millions of dollars in taxes. Well, those millions and millions of dollars in taxes may have been completely property tax, and did he really pay them? I don't know. Once again, just so much disinformation that that's where we've come to, and I'm as cynical as I've ever been in my whole life regarding politics. It's not about honesty and integrity. It's about being a bully, and it's about telling lies. And if you tell enough of them, then it's just the way it is.
Now, stepping away from the presidential race at this point, do you have an opinion on any notable races for Congress, governor, senator, anything?
Well,
That you know on your
I'm
radar
following the
where you
races
think there's
here,
a good candidate?
I'm following the races here in New Mexico, and to be associated with Trump, I think, is the death knell. I think that the Republicans that are running for office have to carry the Trump torch, and in New Mexico, that's toxic, and they're going to suffer.
Okay, so you're in your neighbor state of Utah, which I'm going to guess you do quite a bit of skiing there occasionally. The governor race is going on, and it's between the Republican Spencer Cox and a Democrat, and it's Utah, election year. Spencer Cox is going to win that race, but they actually this week put out a commercial together where they said you should vote for me, no, you should vote for me, but they said we don't hate each other and we want to work together, regardless of the outcome of this race. What is your opinion on that, and how do you think that goes from Utah to something where in the future a presidential race could work like that instead of having debates where people accuse people's children of being cocaine addicts?
Well, I think this is the most valuable aspect of the entire call. I didn't realize that had actually taken place, and boy, wouldn't that be cool? I ran 2 terms for governor where I didn't mention my opponent in print, radio, or television, believing that people don't want to hear anything negative about your opponent. They want to hear what it is or who you are and what you're going to do. And in that context, when you have 2 candidates saying, look, regardless of who wins, let's all work together, boy, that'd be a refreshing change. And maybe that's the consequence of Trump and Biden. We'll see. The consequence of Trump, certainly.
Well, I'm glad I brought that on your radar. Now, let's go into the real topic because the debate is tonight, and I'm putting this video we'll see for you is just start off with that one.
You know, Charles, you cut out about 3/4 of everything that you just said.
And that's why we have editors. No, but so the debate is tonight, and this is the second presidential debate. It should be the third. Did you watch the first presidential debate?
I did watch the first presidential debate.
Now, what did you think of that?
Well, I thought it reminded me of Trump was a bully. Trump was a bully, and I have never felt uncomfortable watching a debate. Debates for me have always been entertaining. There might be a maddening aspect of how can that person think X, Y, or Z, but to be uncomfortable with Trump and his interrupting and the degradation of the office of the president of the United States, which is what I came away with, I thought it was horrible. I am going to watch this tonight to see what a turned off mic is going to sound like in a debate.
Looking at it, there was a moment that really shocked me where Donald Trump said Hunter Biden is a cocaine addict. And, it gets to the point where he's just accusing, the vice president's son of being on drugs. So for you with that, it's just, do you think Trump has a limit of something he won't say?
No, I don't. And
just
the whole Hunter
one.
Biden cocaine issue, I mean, that's for real. That is for real. Should it be part of the campaign? I don't think so. I don't think so. But in a real campaign, news reports would focus on the good and the bad, and that Hunter Biden's cocaine addiction is the bad, but it would be out there. It wouldn't be a revelation that Trump would have to be thumping. It would be something that we all understood. And hey, these are issues that affect a lot of families. It doesn't, nobody's immune from these kinds of stories.
Now, Joe Biden, do you ever think that he's sitting there and he's just saying, why don't I just say, you cheated on your wife with an adult film star while she was pregnant with your fifth child, and this is your third wife? Do you ever think that temptation happens with these people where they're just saying, why don't we just attack him the same way? And, be it Ted Cruz, Hillary Clinton, Joe Biden, they've all kind of sat there, not attacking him on this massive amount of baggage that exists. Why do you think that is?
Well, you have to think that they're looking to the media, to have the media do that as opposed to themselves. But I'm pointing out the obvious. The media is so split. It's by split. There are those. The media is by far and away against Trump, and probably for a good reason. Probably because all these things have a basis in truth. That he does inflate his assets when it comes to getting a bank loan, and the next day he's got to file his taxes, and value or the depreciation on those properties skyrockets, and from one day to the next, it's has everything to do with him furthering his own financial goals, making money, and it's so lopsided. The coverage is just so lopsided that, and Trump, the takeaway when it comes to Trump is that he doesn't tell the truth. He never had the net worth that originally he was talking about. And, what's wrong with having $1.5 billion as opposed to $10 billion? Well, nothing other than the $1.5 billion may be the truth, whereas the $10 billion is a complete fabrication.
Now, the presidential debates, if you were in the first one and it's Trump versus Biden, he's interrupting the way he is and he's not letting anyone speak, how would you have handled that?
Well, in a softer voice, I would have just talked incessantly myself. It wouldn't have been a bullying voice, though. It would have been just talking as incessantly as he did, talking about whatever. I could have started talking about scuba diving in the Bahamas, and I think it would have proved entertaining given the context of getting absolutely bullied. You saw it.
You
Wouldn't
could
you
have
have
stuck
looked?
your tongue out in the debate, and it would have looked better.
You could have stuck your tongue out during the debate. You could have, on and on and on, but you could have had a smile on your face. You could have had a smile on
Okay,
your face and let people make their own conclusions, which I think were obvious.
so
Somebody said
here's
after that debate that Trump didn't lose any of his base. I would probably agree with that completely. Did he pick up a single vote? I don't know. I don't think so. Not mine.
So here's a question for you when it comes to all this going on. You had the Aleppo moment, which, definitely is not the greatest thing to happen in that campaign. It was a difficult process, and it did, I think, ultimately stifle what could have been debate access. But at the end of the day, it was one very simple gaffe. And, it was a simple gaffe you had, and I think, first off, he kind of said it in a weird way. But ultimately, my question is, how do you feel, where the media just attacked you in a dog pile on that? But Trump and Biden, it seems like they do something like that every single day, and they just get away with it.
Well, I mean, you hit it perfectly. You hit it perfectly. Are there going to be gaffes? Absolutely, there are going to be gaffes. I can't imagine running for president of the United States and not sticking your foot in your mouth all the time. The difference would be that, look, here's an honest. I stuck my foot in my mouth. I'm a well thought. I think things through. I do a really good job of surrounding myself with good people, and I have really good judgment. But you can count on me to tell the truth. And in
Okay.
this case, all they're misstating things all the time, every single day. But when you have billions of dollars to spend on your campaign, you can wash that stuff over. When you got millions, yeah,
Okay.
we
So,
spent. Bill Weld and I spent $2.80 a vote. Hillary and Trump each spent about $28 a vote. So if we'd have just had a few tens of millions of dollars more, we could have really made a mark, I think.
okay. So, we've talked a lot about the national politics in 2020. Now, time for some fun stuff, and it does relate to the LP and the 2016 process. So, first off, John McAfee is currently in jail, and he's using Twitter through jail right now. You kissed John McAfee on Stossel's show. You debated him. I can't even remember how many times. What do you think of that man's legal situation at this point in time?
Well, I wouldn't want to be John McAfee. I just wouldn't want to be him and what he's being accused of. And I have a sense that a lot of it is probably based on fact.
So that I think says it all right there. And another one is an opponent who, Austin Petersen, he ran against you. It came second place in 2016. Austin tweeted the other day, and I don't know if you're aware of this, he tweeted Donald Trump is more libertarian than Gary Johnson. What is your response on that?
Well, Austin Petersen is not an honorable guy. That's just my takeaway from the 2016 election. And I'll just leave it at that.
And I think that's all you have to say, because ultimately, when you look at your Wikipedia page versus his, yours has you winning a gubernatorial race, his doesn't, which is kind of a weird way to look at it. But, going forward now, because, it looks like we will get President Biden. It seems like you believe that. I give it about a 60% chance. If, Joe Biden were to call you up and say, hey, Governor, I want some advice on this issue, what would be your advice? What would you say to, Vice President Biden at this point if he does win?
Well, the chances of him calling me and asking me for my advice on anything, I think, is about zero. But if he did, I'd love to take the call, and I'd love to know what it is he would want my advice about.
So you would take the call. I mean, it's not a very high chance, but there will be some people, I think, who you could reach out to. New Mexico has 2 Democrat senators. I'm sure you can get a line with them whenever you want. So, I mean, if you had to, voice any opinion on what you'd like to see Joe Biden do, like the issues you do agree with him on, what would you say they are?
Well, he is talking about marijuana reform, and I think that's kind of a canary in the coal mine. The whole notion of drug reform, marijuana reform, criminal justice reform, Black Lives Matter. Really, all of it ties together. So I hope he holds with those promises. And um, I think from a civil liberties standpoint, he could do pretty darn well. From a taxation standpoint, I think the reality is he is going to get elected, and it's going to be hold on to your wallet.
Okay.
So
And,
um,
and also, by the way, the Republicans are already campaigning. Senator Tom Cotton, who he actually says we have an under incarceration problem in this country, and he wants to put troops into more places. He's going to New Hampshire right now. And I mean, do you think there's any chance that in the Republican Party, being a former Republican governor, there's a chance that the party could reemerge away from, the Trump legacy?
I think it's going to take a while. It's not going to happen right away, and hopefully that it would reemerge. Hopefully that would be in a short amount of time. But look, that's going to be the presidential elections 4 years from now, as opposed to now. I mean, Republicans right now, they support Trump. And that's a heavy cross to bear.
So now, what do you think of also, someone who was popular with the libertarian community, Senator Rand Paul, and he's went, almost 100% with Trump the last 4 years, and he doesn't seem as popular right now. But what do you think of, that treatment overall? And I mean, Congressman Massey supported Trump as well until recently, and Congressman Amash was the only one who stayed opposed. What is your opinion on that situation?
Well, for those that have shown the foresight to say that, look, I'm not having anything to do with Trump. I think that it's all about history. It's all about looking back on your life and what is it that you did with your life? What are the decisions that you made? Who did you support? Who did you not support? It's important. I pride myself on, look, I'm not voting for Trump, but I'm not voting for Biden either.
So
I'm not
who
voting.
would you who would you say are the best and worst presidents in your lifetime?
In my lifetime,
Yeah,
I
it's a
hate
tough
to judge.
question.
Well, no, not necessarily tough. It's just, you're basing this on history, and in my lifetime, the worst president has been Donald Trump, in my opinion. In my lifetime, the best president, boy, and again, I'm talking now. This is my birth, but I don't know. Maybe Eisenhower. I hate to start talking about presidents because you know here's who I like, here's who I don't like, and then you find out things that you had no idea, and just stay away from it.
I would have said Eisenhower also, so I agree with you on that. And I also,
That doesn't make either of us right. We're wrong about 50% of the time.
yeah, that's true. We can both be wrong. And actually, that's a great question also in itself. With your legacy, what do you think, you're right and wrong on sometimes? Have you ever changed your stance on a major issue, since becoming governor or presidential candidate? How do you feel on that?
Well, that you can change your mind, but now you're back to honesty and transparency. And I changed my mind as governor when it came to the death penalty. I came to recognize that the death penalty, that is there's a mistake percentage when it comes to putting people to death, and it might be as high as 6%. And I
Okay.
don't want to put one innocent person to death to punish 99 or put 99 that are guilty to death. I'd rather lock them all up for the rest of their lives, given the opportunity for appeal and the opportunity for the innocent to actually stay alive. And that
Okay.
was a change that I made as governor, recognizing that the government absolutely makes mistakes, something that I really didn't even deem possible, as naive as that sounds.
Okay, so closing this up because I think we have a debate to watch. My final question is going to be, Governor, you don't seem like a man who, ever really can be retired. I don't think we'll ever have an officially retired, Gary Johnson, be it, maybe not in politics again. But it's been 4 years since you ran for president. You ran for Senate in between. What are you looking to do for the next 4 years? Is it, I don't think a campaign's in the future, but what interests you in the next 4 years?
Well, I remain a competitive athlete at, I'm getting close to 68 years old. If that isn't an oxymoron, I don't know what is, but I do ski 120 days a season. And for the last 3 years, I've done the Continental Divide mountain bike race, a 2,800-mile race on the Continental Divide from Banff, Canada to Antelope Wells, New Mexico. So I hope to stay healthy, and that's eating right. And I have a great relationship with my partner, Kate, and I love getting up every single morning. I should live to 100, barring death by impact.
So, am I going to be calling you up at age 96 or so saying, Governor, we need you to run for president again?
At 96, probably not. But boy, the way that these guys are holding out, 80 years old as president of the United States, I the adage, the only way you can count a politician out is if they're 6 feet under. I think that's certainly showing itself. So maybe we will have that interview when I'm 96 saying, look, I just gotten bored with everything. I think I want to be a U.S. Senator for my remaining years, which I think I'll live to be 108. So I'll run for 2 terms.
Well, I do hope you live for 108, which I believe your parents, which they passed away in the last couple of years. I'm sorry for that, but they were in their 90s, right?
Well, my father was 98 and they did die just a few days apart.
Yeah, so
after
we're
all
going to
that
get
time.
so we're going to get you to a minimum of 108. I mean, maybe 109, but we're going to get you there. And I guess any final things you want to say, because you don't do interviews that often. There's a phone right there, but it's not ringing it. Let's wait for that to stop ringing.
All right.
Well, this is why we have edits. But man, that's a long dial-up right there.
No answering machine. Never answer the home phone. It's the home phone.
Is this the house in the mountains?
Yes.
Okay, and what was I going to ask there? Well, the final question is, well, not a final question, but just looking at it, is there anything you'd like to say? Because you haven't done a lot of interviews this year. In fact, I'd be willing to guess I'm probably the last interview of the presidential cycle for you. What would you like to say to anyone interested in hearing?
Well, do vote your conscience, and if you really want to see change, you can't vote for a Republican or a Democrat, and that isn't to say that the Republicans and the Democrats couldn't have a candidate that would bring about meaningful change, be a good leader. But right now, I just don't see it. So vote your conscience, and in my case, that would be the Libertarian platform. Definition of insanity, doing the same thing over and over, expecting different results. That's a definition of insanity. And the founding fathers, the Constitution, they never envisioned political parties. They thought that would be the demise of our republic, and maybe it is.
And with that, I'm Charles Perello. I think this was a great interview. And all I can say is, Governor, I voted for you twice. Probably not voting Libertarian this time, but hope to see you again in the political process, be it just a commentator or a candidate. And thank you for joining me.
All right, Charles. Good talking with you. Thank you.
Great talking. And hold on.